Hello, everyone. Welcome again. So glad to be with you today. Kathy and I are having a good day together. And Kathy, it's getting warmer outside. You were outside with the grand girls yesterday playing, and
Yes.
you had to wear little jackets, I guess, but it was pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. We had a lot of fun running around the backyard.
And I noticed the grass is starting to get green. You know
Yeah.
what I used to say? You years ago you used to hear me probably say it. Spring is sprung, the grass is riz. I wonder
Wonder
where
where
the
the
flowers
flowers
is.
is.
I don't know where I learned that. I've never heard anybody else say it, but
You learned
I
it
picked it
from
up.
my parents
No,
back.
no, I knew it before I ever met
You
your
knew it
parents.
before you met me and my parent. Oh,
Yes, I was
okay.
I was
Yeah.
entertaining girlfriends with funny
Yes.
lines before I met you. So that I knew that line. So
Well,
I was so charming. I was being charming.
you did
And
not originate that line, and I bet the girlfriends loved it.
yeah, but I don't know where I heard it. I have no idea. But anyway, uh I was going to what?
The Three Stooges, should I even say that? That's where you learned that phrase.
No. I don't think so. But anyway,
Okay.
we were and all our friends as you're coming on and as they're coming on,
Yeah.
we have something in common this last week or so. Our both our backs have been hurting us, and
Yeah.
so I was thinking about it back and forth. What do we do? You know, what's wrong with us? And somebody suggested go back to the root of it, and maybe it's time to get a new mattress.
Maybe.
But we have pretty good ones. I like ours. You know, I just share with you that kind of both sides go up and down like that, and you can push buttons on them and things. But they have much better ones now. The only thing
I
is,
know.
I don't want to go. I
Me-
just I don't want to say I don't like the word hate. So what's a good word?
Despise.
Yeah, it's better.
Um, strongly hesitate.
Yeah, I don't like because when we were in there before,
Yeah.
as soon as you walk in, today they've got all these iPad things. They want to know all this, and they ask you all this personal information about how you sleep, and that's personal to me.
That is personal.
And they were asking all kinds of questions about what this, what that, and they don't ask you how much money you want to spend. They just ask you that. And then the worst part about it is, so here's what happened when we were there before when we bought this mattress is, and it was a nice store, but I go and push around on them and then sit on the edge. And you can't sit on the edge anymore because no, you got to lie down because we have to push our buttons so they can weigh out how your body contours and all that. And so, I laid down like this and I felt like I'm in a casket and people are viewing me because everybody in this, everybody's looking like, oh, you're trying to. And then next to us, a lady comes and lays down in the mattress next to me. I'm just not comfortable with that.
It's
You know.
awkward.
Yeah, and so they ask me these, they ask you all these questions like, well, first of all, I remember that they have all these new stuff like we have this memory foam that remembers and stuff and make it. So I remember that, and then they said, so memory foam, and then they said, so are you a right side sleeper or a left side sleeper? And I go, doesn't make any difference. I think most of my sides are about the same. And then there was other dumb questions. You said, do you sleep on your stomach or do you sleep on your back? And I like. Do you remember? I
Yeah.
try to joke with people anyway. I said, listen, it doesn't make any difference to me. I don't know if I sleep on my stomach. I don't know if I sleep on my back, and all that. I said, but what I need is I do know I sleepwalk, and I need some shoes with memory foam so I can find my way back home. So that was my last statement.
Yeah.
We did buy it though, and they came
Yeah.
and set it up and everything. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's. I don't
I
know.
don't
It's
know.
kind
I
of
am about ready for a new one because we lost the connection with the controls, so I can't control my side anymore. So
I have controls of my
I
side.
know, but you think yours is so firm, but mine is firmer than your
Yeah,
side.
I bumped it up to the firmest. Hey, where's our friends? We must not be very
Oh
interesting today, or
no,
did
are
we?
we streaming?
Are we on there?
Oh
Uh,
no, see,
it was that.
we
Was it that sermon
we
Sunday?
started. Yeah, it was that sermon. We
Because
left everyone
well, I noticed.
silent.
Well, first of all, I don't like to ever watch myself or listen to myself sing. I don't listen to recordings of me. I don't listen to myself preach. And this morning, I saw on YouTube. That's
Yeah.
what it was. YouTube that it had these. It had a red dot and it had the number 23. I have no idea what that means. I got 23 messages. Are there 23 things they think I would like to watch? I have no idea because I don't look at that often.
Yeah.
But I was curious, so I hit it, and there were other people and stuff on there, but scrolling, looking, and I thought in just I don't know, 5 minutes or more. I saw myself like 4 times on there, maybe a little longer. But anyway, I'm scrolling and I'm not used to seeing myself on there. And I saw myself on YouTube 4 times, and immediately I go like, I don't like to see myself. But then when I did, and I listened to just a little bit of some of the stuff that I said and some of the stuff we said here. One of the things what'd you ask me last week about men? And I talked about leadership, or men are not manly anymore. What you remember?
Yeah.
Somebody else asked.
Yeah, where have all the manly men
Yeah, and
gone?
and so I listened to just a snippet of my
Or the
answer
manly
and
warriors.
thought, oh, what do people think when they hear me talk like that? Because I notice I'm not saying what other people say. Some people preach, some people evangelize, some people tell stories like that. But mine is my stuff I say kind of hits you. And so then after I did that, I started reflecting on last Sunday's sermon about the rich man and Lazarus, and it started bothering me a little bit. Just like when I mean, it's not wrong. It's just you see yourself, and you go like. And then I started thinking of myself, and then I remembered that I slapped the pulpit 2 times and slapped and got real stern and leaned forward. And I normally don't do that. I've done some things over the years, kind of crazy things that you heard him tell some stories about me the other day. But but I did that, and so now that you're reliving it, as all the preachers know, even the ones at our church, the other guys and gals, they do the same thing. Maybe you do. When you're doing it, it feels right, and it seems right. And then a couple of days later, then you think about it and you think, oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. So I was thinking about that later. And the other part about it was I did get some I thank everybody. I did really get some really nice texts or messages about that sermon, but not too many. And it's one of my favorite sermons. It's one of the most important sermons I think that I ever preached around the world.
Is.
And it was one of the things you remember. When the churches and places we went to were primed for a move of God and revival and moves of God, it was huge response to that. You'll notice at our church there was a response. It wasn't as huge, though, as I'd like it to be. So that says the readiness is maybe we're not as ready, which was in the sermon. I preached about that, being ready for preparation. But then it could have been slapping the pulpit didn't work. They're just too afraid to come up, but so I've been reflecting on it. And so I would like to just talk a little bit about that passage because maybe, just correct a few things, thinking that might have been there. Hello from Tulsa. I see the word Tulsa up there. Hi. And correct that. But it's so important. And we have the rich man and we have Lazarus, and we know that the rich man, the assumption is, first of all, they're both Jewish. There's a rich man who, very rich, and he had a beggar at his door every day. And it's the assumption that he never helped him. Because it says he longed for the dogs to lick his sores, the poor guy did. And so we get the idea nobody helped him.
Right.
Maybe the rich guy walked around, maybe stepped over him. And I taught a little bit about the culture on that. But then they both die. And I mentioned how that puts it's one of the things you need to do when you read the Bible, and especially parables, is ask yourself the question, what did those people think when they heard it? Because they're not our culture. They don't live here. They don't live in Kansas City. And so it doesn't bother us a bit. In fact, in Christian theology, clear back to the Catholics started, a lot of things. When they started having the monks and beggars, and it was a sign of spirituality was to give everything up and be poor and beg for food and all that and live in a hill somewhere, Okay, so we read it, and because some people in our country, they got a little problem with rich people, it's a little, and so when we Christians read it, and the rich man went to hell, they go, good thing he went to Hades, right? Well, he deserved to. That's where rich people go. And then pastors pick it up and say, "You see, folks, money is really evil. You don't." And then he says, "Now let's pray for our offering." And, so they preach against money and want money at the same time. because you and I know absolutely that money's not the problem. It's loving money.
Yeah.
And you can love money and not have any of it. Okay. So, in fact, I imagine the poor beggar would have loved to have some money.
Yeah.
So it's not a sermon, and it's flipped on rich people. They did the opposite. They would have been shocked that a rich man would go to Hades or hell, because it was, if you did, it was a sign you were being blessed by God.
Right.
You were blessed by God, and the other one, as you know, Jews probably thought that then. The other one, the beggar, probably had a sin in his life, or his grandmother, or some kind of cultish thing going on, or pagan thing, and so when he's born, so that's how they thought. So Jesus just quickly turns that around and says the rich guy went down to hell, and then now the poor man is in the bosom of Abraham, which is the highest. Might not mean much to us, but to the Jews at that time, that would have been the highest calling. That's where they want to go. They want to go, where Abraham, into the kingdom of Abraham and the kingdom of God. All right.
Yes.
So that's the setup of the story, and we don't get the shock treatment of it that they would have, like, what is he talking about? How does this happen? And so then they kind of explain it, that God sees it from the point of view of when you were here, you got blessed, and he didn't, and now it's flipped. Okay.
Right.
We do get a little bit of assumption, too, in it, that maybe the rich man ended up there because he did not help the poor man, maybe. But that's not really the point either. So I told you, like, when you read a parable, narrow it down to one, maybe two lessons. And what church, religion, and Christianity has done, they take a parable and they make like 4 sermons out of one parable, make it say what they want. So now we have a sermon on rich people or poor, and now and how poor people are more blessed than rich people.
Yeah.
Well, go ask a poor person and see if that's true, and if they agree. And then you got another sermon, right? Heaven and hell. You better do this or that. You're going to end up where that rich man was, especially if you love money, or you have money. That's even worse. Okay, so now we got 2 sermons out of it. Let's see, where does it go after that? Oh, then the interesting part is he's being tormented. The rich man's being tormented in the flames, and he doesn't ask to go himself. Wouldn't it have been smart? I mean, wouldn't you at least try? Like, hey, I'm burning up here. Could I go get a drink of water?
Yeah, okay.
Just a little sip, cool my tongue. But instead, he's still in the rich man mode, and Lazarus in the poor man mode. Hey, Abraham, go send Lazarus to get me a drink. Wet my,
That's
so
a lot
cool
of nerve.
my. He's not thinking clear.
Boy.
Okay, and then now we start. The boom comes down, and we start getting to what is this really about, and we start getting. In the parable, Jesus says no. He can't go there, you can't go here, and he can't go up and get you a drink. Nothing. Okay, he says there's a chasm or like a Grand Canyon.
Gulf, yeah.
A great gulf. And so there's no crossing over, and the idea there is, rich guy, you're stuck. No hope, no out, and no visitors, right? And no drink, right? So it's giving them it's showing us a helpless situation.
Right.
Now, of course, Lazarus is stuck too, but he's happy in where he is with Abraham.
Right,
so we don't care about that.
Right.
That's eternal. But the story is getting, this man is in a hopeless position. When I preached it on Sunday, even though I slapped the pulpit a couple of times, which I probably won't do again for a long time.
I didn't even notice.
Oh, good. I hope it wasn't too. I was going to say striking.
If you did it, I really liked it. It was striking.
Well, some people that texted me said they felt like the strength, the emotion, and the passion of what I believe and how I'm trying to help people and what that is about is needed, at least at times.
Yes,
So the ones that sent me stuff, they understood it and they were actually encouraging me. But anyway, I expressed this a little bit, but I'm not sure I expressed it enough, that the key of the understanding of what's coming next is the rich man is in an absolutely hopeless situation, and there's nothing anybody can do, okay?
Right.
Now, that's our first setup, which is not not a subject on its own. It's a setup. So that's it. I guess he resigns himself to believe, okay, there's nothing I can do for me. So he does what we do, other people do, parents do, and family members do. And he says, okay, well, maybe we could send Lazarus then. No, yeah, yeah. Did he say Lazarus or just, yeah, back up there to go find my 5 brothers and tell them about this place. Tell them the whole story. So the 5 brothers, the 5 guys, as we say, will not end up in this place. Okay, now
Right.
we're getting clear what the real message is. Because, well, he says you can't do it. And then, would they listen to Lazarus anyway? Well, that's what he thinks maybe. But he starts, but the answer comes back and says, oh, wait a minute. Your 5 brothers have Moses and the prophets, which that was the Jewish expression. They wouldn't say, the Jews, nobody would have said, well, your 5 brothers have the Old Testament.
Right.
They wouldn't have said that because it wasn't
Right.
old. Well, it was Testament, but it wasn't
Right. Yeah.
old. Yeah. That's what I heard one guy say, one Jewish guy say, we have a Testament, the Old Testament, and they say, but, for the Christians, it wasn't good enough for them. They had to write a new one. That's what he said. That's pretty funny, But so anyway, they just would. So their phrase was not New Testament. Sometimes they would say the Scriptures, but it was more emphatic. Moses is, Abraham's in the parable. Moses and the prophets are on top of things because when Jesus went to the mountain and he was transfigured like that, he had Moses and one prophet, right, Elijah.
Yes.
So that's sort of the
There you
trio
go,
of that.
yeah.
Moses, prophets, and then
Yeah.
Jesus are all
Yeah.
up there. Now some disciples too.
Right.
And so that meant a lot to them. But anyway, so he says they have Moses and the prophets. All they got to do is listen to them, and they'll get it. They'll understand all that they need to understand.
Yeah.
And then comes the real exciting moment that tells us a lot. And the rich guy says, "No, Abraham, no." So when he says no, he's not saying no to Moses and the prophets.
Right.
He's saying no to his 5 brothers, the 5 guys. He said, that's not going to work. That's what
Right.
he's saying. That
Yeah.
will not work. Why?
Why?
Because they do have Moses and the prophets, and they're not listening. So when he gets that answer, the rich guy comes out with plan, which we call it plan B, or however many plans he's got to get water and all that. He comes up with the next level plan. He's like, oh, okay, so I get you on Moses and the prophets, but if somebody would be brought back from the dead, they will listen.
Oh my.
Okay? And, we might think things like that. I have people
yeah.
tell me a lot of times, say, well, if we could just get more miracles in the church, just get more people healed. Or so-and-so's got us sick or something. Says, just think how many people would get saved if this guy would get healed. Well, does that make any just
maybe I might be a rabble rouser, but how many people are going to get saved if you die and go to heaven and you walk all around and you see Jesus and you see your long lost relatives and then he sends you back and you didn't really want to come, but now you can write a book and become famous.
Oh, you're talking about people who died and said they came back.
And said they came back, and thank God if you do, but
Yeah, it's a great
story,
experience.
but that's not going to make me believe in the Lord Jesus
No,
Christ.
because you believe by faith in Jesus, not faith in somebody else's journey.
Amen.
And I have a thing about that. We're getting off the subject, but that's okay.
Oh, well.
And I
sorry.
have a thing about, we got a little bit of time left.
Okay.
I have a thing about that because this is me. I was so powerfully touched by God, and I didn't fly to heaven and come back.
That's right.
And neither did Paul. Did get raised up to the heavens, but his transformation was on the road to
That's
Damascus.
right.
And I had such a tremendous power,
Yes.
like we say, like lightning from heaven came
Right.
down, and people knew it was in the room, and in our church. And I was changed, and I made a world. I got to have out of that the excitement of
Amen.
that, a
Yes.
world, national and international ministry.
Right.
Then I hear these people that died. I went to heaven, sit in a chair and said, "Let me tell you, I died and went to heaven." And I saw it. There were the most beautiful colors. There were colors and flowers everywhere. And you just listen like, What? How can you sit in that chair
Yes.
and be so calm about telling about this
Right.
journey?
Right.
And then my other tongue in cheek,
Mm-hmm.
like I believe in speaking in tongues. I have a lot of reasons, and I'm a pretty good teacher
yeah.
on it. And if I could ever get with people who say they don't believe in it and really just lay the scriptures out, you'd see how solid that
Yeah.
is.
Right.
I don't care whether they speak in tongues or not, none of my business.
Right.
But I often thought, like, if they really, they were in a kind of a nominal Christian situation, they die, and they see Jesus, and
Yeah.
they go back to heaven. Wouldn't they come back speaking in tongues, the language of
That's
angels?
right, the
That's what
language
Paul-
of
Isn't that what
angels
Paul called it? They're
and-
speaking the
And
language.
powerful worshipers, you could never get them to stop worshiping in tongues.
And Paul said, I will speak with my mind, and I will speak with the Spirit. So they're two different things. Well, anyway,
That's
that's
right.
on that. But so they come back. How can they come back so calm? Okay,
I
that's
don't know,
me, though.
but
That's
wait a
just
minute.
me.
I can't help it. I got to throw this in. Now, Jesus himself said in this parable, so even if they come back from hell, even if Lazarus, came and
From-
said,
back
"There's
from-
a real hell. There's a real hell, guys." He said they're not going to believe. So, going to hell testimony, how bad it is, or a going to heaven testimony and coming back.
Yeah, where are we with that?
Uh-oh, who's going to believe?
And then, yes, because now that's where the parable comes in, isn't it?
Mhm, yeah.
Because Jesus says, nope, even if someone were raised from the dead, they would not believe. Now, that is before he was raised from the dead, but he's projecting his own resurrection and saying it's not going to change him. And in fact, look at all the miracles Jesus did. Some people believed and followed, but the majority did not.
Right.
Did not. In fact, they might have even got angry.
Yeah.
So, all right. So here's what the real parable is about when you get down to the end. And I don't think Sunday I quite got the nail on the head like I would have liked to. Maybe I did, maybe not. But anyway, so I established that the rich man is stuck, right? No hope, can't get out. And then he turns and starts talking about his brothers and says if somebody came back from the dead, then they would believe. And Jesus says no, or the parable says no. Even if someone was raised from the dead, they would not believe. Now, what does that say? Here's the key to it is what I'm supposed to do is say, okay, rich guy, you're stuck, you're helpless, there's no hope for you. And what does the parable say? 5 guys, same thing. Nope, you're not in hell. You're not in heaven. You're not in hell. But you are stuck and in a hopeless place. Because if you don't listen to the Moses and the parables, and that's when I again slapped the pulpit and said, now somebody has been raised. Wish I had a pulpit. Somebody has been raised from the dead, and yet they won't believe. There's no hope. Because Jesus has been raised from the dead. And what difference has it made in most people's lives? None. And even people will believe that he was raised from the dead,
Right.
but it doesn't change the direction of their life. Because what the rich man is trying to do with these 5 brothers is say, if we could get some information to them or somebody be raised from the dead, they're not going to end up here. How are they not going to end up here? They're going to have to change, right?
Yeah,
They're going to have to alter their lifestyle and believe and all those kinds of things. And so he realizes there's no hope for them to do that unless something huge happens. And something huge has happened. And in our country, at least, most people know like we call it the Easter story. They know the resurrection of the dead. They know he was on the cross and he was raised from the dead. And they know the information in their head. And probably the 5 guys had some information in their head. They were
Right.
probably educated, by the way, just guessing at it. But here's the problem. People get nominal, they get backslidden, or they get half-hearted, lukewarm, just going through the motions, and they still believe in God. I thought Pastor James did a good job Sunday, too, of mentioning that puts you in the class with demons, because even demons believe. But you have to be a believer that he's a rewarder of those that diligently what? Seek him. That's what those 5 guys will never do. The rich guy never did it. And possibly Lazarus did, though. We don't know, but because you know where he ended up. And so all this is out there before us. And all I want to do is make Jesus or God or the kingdom of God, I like that phrase a lot. If people would just make it a priority, it's not that hard. You don't have to be a lunatic or a fanatic or, crazy or whatever, or you're going to be weird. No, just God needs to have the proper place in your life, because Jesus has been raised from the dead. He's opened the door. He tore down the curtain or the veil that separated us from God, and now what?
Now what?
And you might believe he did it, but it has not changed your life or your attitude or your direction. And that's the problem with those 5 guys.
Yes.
Surely they've heard of Moses, and they believed in
Well-
Moses and the prophets, but it didn't change anything.
Right.
That's my sermon.
Yeah.
And that's where I get frustrated. I tell them, like, okay, what do I have, or what does the church have, or what does your friends have, or your parents have, or you have that would change somebody? If raised from the dead won't do it, Moses, the prophets, and raised from the dead won't do it, then what will change them? Is there a world famous preacher out there somewhere that's just got the message? And if as I told him, I said, well, what about if I could just get that guy or that gal to come to our church or your church or wherever you're from? Oh, that would do it. It's just you haven't heard the right preacher yet. Because you got a Bible, you got Moses, the prophets, and you got
That's
all
right.
the power and truth you need
Yeah.
that Jesus has been raised from the dead. So
Yeah.
that's me. That's my message.
Really
to 'em,
believe.
and
Really,
really
take him
believe
in.
and really want to see people saved.
Yeah.
Right? Really want to see people rescued and picked up out of their life if they're obviously they're not going to be near as bad as the man. In fact, I said this, the guy with the sores, dogs licking the sores and poor. He's an exaggerated example to catch our attention, but you don't have to be him or her in that condition to need help,
Yes.
to need a better life, to need the
Right.
lift up of God. And most of all, just, righteousness sometimes is doing the right thing. And God is God. And Elijah said that on the mountain. He said, if Baal's God or TV's God or Netflix or your phone is your God, then serve that. But if God is God, serve him. And that's all. So anyway, my hand's okay. I hit it pretty hard, but it didn't hurt.
It's good.
And I did the best I could with it. And I hope this could take it to the next level where people will really think about it again a second time through this. So maybe we're, I was going to say maybe we're a little too serious. So we'll go back to the mattress stories. I don't know if we're going to go buy a mattress or not. I don't know.
Well, now we have to.
Yep. And we could end on something. You could end on a smile if you want to.
I can't go.
No, I'll let you end on a smile. An older lady, and I might be older than some people, but this
Where are
lady
you
was
going?
a lot older. Older.
Than me.
No, older.
Oh,
I
my
mean,
word.
all right. And she's a widow. She lives by herself, and so she said she wanted to meet somebody, and she said, are there any dating sites
Okay.
for that type of
For
person?
my age.
No,
No.
don't do that. You're ruining the story. Older. Got it? So she comes in, she's older, and she says, are there any dating sites for anybody my age or my category in my life? And I stopped and I thought, yep, there is one. She said, what? I said, carbondating.com. We end on a smile. Thank you for letting me finish my story. No, I wasn't talking about you. You look very